Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing a pickup upgrade. I've decided to upgrade the pickups on my guitar. This is a beautiful Telecaster that I reviewed a couple of videos back. I'll put the link up above so you can check out that video. And we're going to be upgrading the pickups in this guitar. And we're going to be showing you how to do the upgrade. So it's going to be a rather long video, but I think those of you who are interested in upgrading your own pickups will find it interesting. So the pickups I've decided to upgrade this guitar with are a set of sleeper pickups in my opinion. They are a set of pickups from BYOguitar.com. You can check them out on their website. I'll put the link below. And these are a set of a Vortex pickups that they are selling. And they're a little bit hotter than the standard pickup set, but I think they're going to be a great match for this guitar. Now, what's really cool about these pickups is that they retail for just over $69, which is a steal in my opinion, and that is $69 for the entire set. They are pickups using Alnico 3 magnets, and the characteristics of an Alnico 3 magnets are that they will give you a little bit more of a warmer sound. They're pretty balanced. They do give you a nice note separation. The neck pickup is 7.1K. The bridge pickup is a little hotter, 8.9K, and they are using nice cloth wire, so it's giving you that vintage flair. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll go over to the bench where I'll open up the guitar and I'll show you how I go about upgrading the pickups. Those of you that are interested in performing these mods on your guitar or a pickup upgrade like this will get a lot out of this video. Do you see what I see? All right, so you see here we have a nice set of pickups, the bridge, the neck. It comes with a set of instructions here, so if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to wire up a three-way Telecaster, they have a nice color diagram here that you can refer to. Four-way, three-way, so you have a choice. This is a three-way switch, so we're going to be using the three-way, and it comes, you can see it comes with typical cloth wire covers. It has a nice base here that looks like it's made of brass, and they look like pretty nice pickups, and I'm anxious to get them in. These also come with a set of screws, and they have the sort of vintage type rubber. Instead of using springs, they're using rubber. I like to do these on some of my guitars as well. And that's about it. That's all you get in here. So these pickups are really nice because not only are they wax potted, they're using A3 magnets, and the DC resistance on these, I believe on the bridge pickup you're looking at about an 8.9. On the neck pickup you're looking at about a 7.1. And they're using 43 gauge plain enamel wire. Alright, and of course it's a nickel silver cover here, which I like. So I'm anxious to get them in the guitar. So today what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the strings off the guitar and pull off the pickguard, do the wiring, and set it up. Now, it's not rocket science, folks. You know, pretty simple stuff, but I know you guys like watching this type of thing. Well, many of you have indicated that it's something you enjoy and you find it relaxing, so I figured why not throw it on the bench and do what we need to do on this guitar and show you how I do it. So the first thing obviously we're going to need to do is to remove the strings on the guitar. So let's start with that. Obviously some tools make your life a little easier. I like to use this little power drill slash screwdriver that I got off Amazon. It works pretty good. I made myself a little string winder attachment for it, so it obviously works a lot better and quicker for loosening up the strings and stuff like that. So we're going to loosen up the strings, all of them. I like to do them all at the same time. This thing really makes short work of loosening up the strings, you know what I mean? If you're doing it by hand, you're just like wasting time, so. I normally change the strings out completely, so I won't even bother loosening them, I'll just like cut them off. But because, you know, I'm frugal, what I like to do is I like to make sure everything's working properly. Sometimes I'll put back the old set of strings till I got everything dialed in the way I want, and then I'll upgrade the strings to a new set. Why not reuse the strings if you can? You know, if you're careful and you don't bend the strings too much, you can reuse them without them breaking. We're basically clear now. We can work on the other end. They're all basically here. What I like to do is just put a little piece of tape on the strings just to hold them and make sure they're not in my way. So we'll just wrap a little piece of tape here like so and just tape them out of the way. The next thing we're going to have to do is remove the pickguard, and I still like to use this for the pickguard, so I have a little attachment for it. What I like to do is stick a little magnet on it so it kind of magnetizes the bit so that the screws don't fall off. Alright. There's nothing worse than losing a screw. Now, I've never taken a peek under the pickguard on this guitar, so I don't know what I'm going to find. And one of the things you have to know about changing pickups on a telecaster is you have to actually also remove the bridge here. So we're going to try and see how we can do that without making a big mess. Alright, so we got all the screws out. We can slide off the pickguard here and take a peek underneath. Well, here we can see the bottom of the eArt pickup, and you can see that it's a simple ceramic type pickup. That's why these pickups do sound pretty hot. So we're going to take this out eventually and replace it with the other one. You can also see that nothing is shielded in here. So that's possibly something else, a project for another time, that we might want to shield that up so to actually reduce the hum. I'm surprised I didn't even use shielding tape or paint. You can see the back of the pickup plate here is not shielded either. So that's interesting. So that would definitely be an upgrade that I would do eventually. So we're going to remove the bridge next. So to do that we have to remove these 4 screws. Not a big deal. And this should pop off pretty easily here. So let me just flip this over. Now, because I have the strings in here, I don't have that much leeway, but I want to show you. So there is a ground wire there, so you want to make sure that little ground wire doesn't disappear in the hole, because that is grounding the bottom of that bridge. You can see this is also a ceramic magnet, and you can also see that nothing is actually shielded in here. Unfortunately, I don't have any shielding paint. That's the easiest way of shielding this up. I usually use shielding tape, which is getting more and more expensive by the day. But for now, I think we're just going to change the pickups. We'll see whether or not we need to shield this up later on. So let's get cracking. I'll bring out the soldering iron. We're going to just disconnect all of this. It would probably be a good idea to also open up this cavity right here. So let's do that. So here we can see that we have full-sized pots. They look like they're alpha pots, which is really nice. The switch here is not a very high quality switch. It's kind of a budget switch, but it's still working, so we're going to keep it for now. You have a little resistor here. I don't know what the value is, but we'll check that out later on. So it's not too complicated. So basically, white here, the grounds are going to the back of the pot for the volume, and then we have the this is going to the bridge. You can either just desolder these completely and mark them down. I tend to just I like to snip these just right there, so then I know which ones go where and I don't mess it up. It's just easier for me. So according to the diagram here, the white and the black wire are going to the back of the pot, and the colored wire is going to the switch, which is going to be going right over here where the old one was. So basically the black and the white are a ground. So it's not too complicated. So I take a little pretty sharp device here. This is a wire stripper, but it also has a cutter section here, and I'll just cut off carefully these two wires here and pull out the pickguard completely once, and we'll take this one here. There's also the ground, which I forgot to cut off here, so we got to do that one too. Just make sure you don't cut off the wrong wires, because you want to make sure you don't cause issues. So there we go. Alright, so that comes off. We're going to take this off and get it ready for the new one. Alright, and now for this one here, we have to snip. We snip that one. We just have to snip the ground wire, which is this one here. This tool is pretty big. It's easier to work with a smaller one. Alright, so we have that one off. Now, as you can see, this one is using the springs and not the rubber gaskets like this one is, like the new ones are. I tend to like the gaskets, but I keep the springs as well. Keep the springs, you never know, you might need them. You just want to be sure that the whole thing doesn't pop off completely. Hold on to the spring. So once you have those off, the pickup comes off. I like to keep my pickups because you never know what project I'll be wanting to use these for next. There's always a project eventually. And then we have the new ones. I usually keep the plastic on the pickup while I'm doing this so it doesn't scratch everything up. It should be a drop-in replacement, folks. There shouldn't be any reason that it doesn't fit. So I'm going to put in the new screws. The advantage of the springs is that they're not as grippy, so they come off easier than these rubber gaskets do. But I like the rubber gaskets because they hold everything pretty snugly in place. So sometimes what you'll find is that the screw hole is not the same size. So at that point you can either decide to go with the screws that were already there, or make the holes bigger. In this particular case, I don't feel like drilling new holes, but it doesn't fit. These holes are slightly smaller. So perhaps what I'll do is stick with the original screws. They fit nice. They're chamfered for the screw holes. Why mess with a good thing, right? So we'll take the old screws, but I'll use the gaskets instead, like that. Old screws with the gaskets. I could go with the springs and keep everything as is, but why not use the gaskets? I don't know. I like the gaskets. And we'll keep these screws for something else, obviously. I have a plastic little bin with all kinds of stuff that I can reuse, and they'll come in handy for another project for sure. Alright, so once those are in, all we have to do is drop the pickup in here. The holes that we have in these pickups here are rather small, but because the screws are sharp, they should go right in. Make sure it's turning in the clockwise direction here, and just screw them in like so. I won't screw them in completely yet, just enough to hold them in place. That should be fine. So that's good. On the cloth wires, you can just pull them back and tin them. You don't necessarily have to cut the cloth. This is one of the reasons why cloth is fun to work with because you can just pull it back a little bit. But you do want to tin the wires. The black and the white go to the ground. So what I like to do is I like to wrap them. I find it cuts down on the hum a little bit if you wrap them like that. Typically these wires are probably too long as they are right now, but no big deal. Just wrap them like this. We can tack these together and that'll be grounded to the back of the pot. This will go to the switch. Let's do the same thing for this pickup right here. So we're gonna have to take out the remaining screws. So you can see the new pickup is really nice. It's got some nice, pretty thick wrapping around the edge of the pickups there. A nice thick base. Magnets look nice. The whole pickup looks really quality, if you ask me. I just hope it sounds as good as it looks. Alright, so when they made these pickups for a Telecaster, they made them idiot proof because you can't put them in backwards. So you have the two screws that line up with these two screws and with the top screw that lines up here. So you really can't mess it up. If this is the first time you're doing this, there's not much to worry about. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're switching out pickups and stuff like that is that there's no guarantee that the holes, the screws are going to fit the new pickups that you have here. So here, for example, if I take the old screw and see if it actually fits the new pickup, it does not. So here you have to make a decision. Either you make the holes bigger to fit the old screws, or you take the screws that came with the pickup. And in this particular case, I think it's probably easier for me just to take the screws that came with the original pickup. They're very similar, but they are thinner. So we're going to go with the ones that came with the pickups just to make our lives easier here. So we'll put them in and we'll pop in one of these little gaskets just to keep everything in place while we screw everything back in. I get why people like this kind of stuff. You can always learn something new along the way that you didn't already know. So I guess it can be helpful, especially if you haven't done this before and you don't know what to expect. At least you could, we can outline what the pitfalls, any of the pitfalls might be there. Alright, so once these are in, this is one of the reasons why I like using the rubber gaskets. They hold, and you know, if I was using one of these springs, you know, I would put it there and it would pop off. Harder to work with, in my opinion. See, this way we can just kind of place the pickup right there. Everything stays in place and we screw everything back in and we're in business. So I like to do one at a time just to make sure everything's going in properly here. That's good. And we have the last one here and we should be done. Alright, so once we have that in place, I also like to wrap these as much as I can. Not all the way, but at least partially. I'll put them through the hole of the cavity and then separate them again. It's always easier to push them through the hole in there when they're wrapped together like this. Okay, always protect your guitar. And we have the other side that came out here. You can see that, I hope. There we go. So we know that these two wires are from the bridge. So at this point we could wire them up. You're gonna know when the soldering iron is warm enough when the solder melts almost instantaneously. You just want to touch a little bit and that's all you need to do to tin that wire. This is where we had the original wire coming from the bridge. I left that little piece of wire there so we can see and remember where it needed to be attached. So at this point we can take that off. The new wiring diagram is telling us that the black is the ground, so that's going to go to the back of the pot, and the white is going to go there. So why don't we start with the white wire and pull that off. We're gonna get to the good part here now. So we've tinned the wire. The white wire needs to be connected here, as you guys remember. So a little goes a long way when it comes to connecting these wires up. Put a little bit of solder here, the switch, just to give it a little surface to tack itself to. Heat up the joint there, and we're in business. And that's all you need to do. Hold it there for a second to make sure we have a good connection, which we do. I'm actually just going to put a little bit more solder on that. And that's all we really need to do. Okay, so now we're going to put this wire to the back of that pot. Put a little bit of solder here. Okay, so we have that tacked down. So essentially the wiring for the bridge pickup is now in place. We're going to take out the little white wire there. We're just going to pull this guy out. I'm going to put some fresh solder on that connection. We're ready to connect this guy. So these two wires are the ground, this is the switch wire. So we're going to pass these through. That has to go through that hole right there. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Once you have all the wires passed through, we just have to connect these to the ground. We can tack these together like so. Tack these down to the back as we did the other one. I like to add a little bit more. At this point we're almost done. We just have one more connection to do. Make sure we tin that wire as well. And we tack that one down right here. And that's basically it, guys. So at this point you want to just check your connections, make sure everything's in the right place. You don't have any cold soldering joints because that's going to give you problems later on. If everything looks good, we can stuff it all back into the cavity and put the covers back on. So when you're putting everything back in its place, you want to make sure to kind of try and keep the wires as neat as you can. Not always easy to do depending on how long the wires are and how many wires are in the cavity. Ideally, you want the wires to be just long enough to reach where they need to go. You know, nothing sticking up underneath. You want it to be flat as possible. And then we can put the screws back on. Try not to over tighten the screws. You don't want to strip them out. I put them in loose at first, then I do the final tightening later on. So this little wire here is very important. That's the ground wire that needs to touch the back of this plate. Otherwise you're going to have ground issues. So you want to make sure that is sticking out. Usually there's a little indent, so you can see it right there. That's where it was placed before, so we're going to keep it pretty much in the same place. And make sure that doesn't slip in the hole when we're tightening the bridge back in place. Obviously this is always easier to do when you're not dealing with having strings there, but I like to live on the edge. Okay, so that's gonna go right back like that. And I just want to make sure that I still have everything touching underneath there, and I do. I don't like to over tighten the screws because I like it to be able to shift a little bit. See, that screw was a little bit too tight, so I'm just going to loosen it up a little bit. I like to give the bridge an opportunity to move a little bit if it needs to, until all the 4 screws are in place. That one's a little tight as well. Just loosen it back. Okay, so now we can tighten up the center screws, the outer screws. Alright, we don't want to cause too many issues by over tightening anything. It's always best to tighten a little bit at the end by hand. We're going to put the screws back on the pick cover in a minute, but I like to at this point check just to make sure everything's working with the switch and that we haven't wired anything incorrectly. Some of you might be wondering how we do that. Well, it's pretty straightforward. I just plug in the guitar into a cheap little amplifier and play around with the switches to make sure I can hear everything that I should be hearing when the switch is in the proper position. So let's just plug it in. At this point you want to make sure the volume's turned up all the way. Anything made of metal, we tap the pick up. We should be able to hear noise if we put it in the front position here. We should also be able to hear the noise. The front position pickup is a lot quieter than the bridge. The bridge here seems to be a lot hotter, so we'll see how that works once we have everything plugged in an amplifier. Now I think we're ready to put the screws back on the pickguard, and when we do that, again, we don't want to over tighten anything. I like working on guitars more than anything. For me, it's relaxing, it's pleasureful, it allows me to concentrate on something else. Actually, I just noticed something here. I never actually took the plastic off this pickguard, so I might as well take it off now. I should have realized that earlier, but I didn't. So we'll take that off. We can put the rest of the screws in. As I was saying, it's just a lot of pleasure for me to work on guitars. I like doing this a lot. I like making guitars play better, sound better. It just overall makes it more enjoyable for me to own a guitar that plays the way I want it to. A lot of people will often just dismiss a cheaper guitar because, you know, the pickups don't sound perfect, or maybe the switches don't feel right, something along those lines. For me, that's really minor stuff. It's all stuff that can be fixed, and it could be fixed relatively inexpensively, especially if you know how to work on your own guitar. So don't hesitate to learn how to work on your guitars, because honestly, you could probably, with a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, do a way better job setting up a guitar the way you like it once you know what your preference is. Then a tech, the tech is going to go by the book. He's going to do, middle of the road settings in terms of setting up a guitar. But you might want something a little different. Maybe you want your action to be a little bit higher. You maybe want your pickups to be a little lower. For certain guitars, you might want to have the the strings just a little bit higher because you strum harder on that particular guitar. You know, these are things that you will know that a tech might not know. Being able to set up your guitar properly will save you time, will make the guitar more pleasurable to play, and overall a better experience, in my opinion. But you don't have to listen to me, and if you're not confident on working on your guitar, and I get that, some people just don't have the knowledge and you don't want to mess up a really nice guitar. So I would say try practicing on an inexpensive guitar first, and then, you know, if things get good and slowly you get better at it, then the sky's the limit, guys. You can definitely, I'm just putting the screws back in this little bag that I haven't used because that's going to go into the tickle trunk, where we're going to be eventually using these parts for something else. I can't tell you how many times, you know, I was looking for a screw, I was looking for a spring or something like that, and I thought I didn't have any, and I just look in the spare parts bin, and there you go, bingo, we got what we need. So one thing I noticed about this guitar is that, you know, the neck is really well done. I did a full review on this guitar and I talked about how impressed I was with the fretwork on this guitar and just how nicely rounded the frets are. I really was impressed. I don't know if you can see that or not, but high-end workmanship on the frets for sure. And although I've been using this guitar quite a bit, the frets are far from requiring any kind of leveling or anything like that, so I'm not gonna bother with that at all at this point. I'm gonna leave it as is. Everything at the neck here seems to be nice. Eventually I might do a little work on the nut, but for right now I'm not gonna bother with that. The goal of today's video was to get these pickups in. I think we did that relatively easily. Just wanted to show everybody how easy it is to do that, and you shouldn't necessarily be fearful of trying that. It's not that complicated, guys, especially if you don't have any kind of crazy wiring going on. It's pretty straightforward. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to take these strings, we're going to put them back on the guitar, and I'm going to plug in the guitar and see how these pickups sound and tweak them a little bit, make sure the heights are all adjusted properly and they sound the way they should, and hopefully they'll rock. So the last step in the process is just to give it a little bit of a polish, just so that we get all the fingerprint marks and stuff off the guitar. You know, it's hot, fingers are sweaty and stuff like that, so they leave some marks on the guitar. We want to make sure it's as shiny as possible, looking pretty. The strings are on right now. We put the strings all back on. These are the original strings that were on the guitar previously, so I didn't put a fresh set because I'm gonna dial it in. At this point, I didn't go crazy with setting up the actual pickup height. I kind of dialed it in by eye, and what I'll do later on is fine-tune it as I'm playing the guitar. I like to, you know, fine-tune it over a couple of days just to try with different configurations and whatnot. I think that's the best way of doing it. And then once it's dialed in, you know, when I'm happy with it, I kind of gel it at that and go with it. So now that the pickups are installed in this guitar, I'm super excited to try it out and see what they have to offer. I'll be doing a comparison video of the new pickups compared to the old pickups very shortly for those of you who want to see the comparison between the two. I didn't want to put it in this video because this video is long enough, and I appreciate you guys sticking through the video till the end. But if you guys are interested in the comparison video, that will be coming up soon. I'd like to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already done so, hit the little bell icon to be notified whenever I post new videos. And most importantly, guys, tune in on Sunday for our live Sunday show where we talk about gear in a live setting, one-on-one, specifically with you. That's it for now, guys. Stay tuned, keep rocking. More great stuff coming right here on Addicted to Gear. See you soon. I'm super happy to have found the BYO Guitar website, and specifically these budget-friendly pickups, because they seem to be well built, and I'm very interested in trying out a few other sets for some of my other guitars.